welcome to the lab, per se. What are we going to need to get this started? And number one, we need our trusty 8BitDo arcade stick, of course. But let's talk about tools. First of all, screwdrivers. You are going to need this little T10 precision screwdriver, and you want something with a decently long shaft. If you have a modular one, that may not fit, but I haven't really tried, so I can't say. You also want a little flathead guy. This is a 1/8, and this is a T10. So if you don't have a precision screwdriver set, I definitely get one. It's just essential to have in any modder, or just, you know, for whatever you're doing. I use these in a lot of different projects. A multimeter can definitely help. We're going to use that to test buttons and such. I'll show you how to do continuity testing. It really helps because then you don't have to worry about, oh no, does my button work or not? And then you get everything wired and then something doesn't work and you're sad. I'd rather test it before and then find out it works. And it's really easy to do. We'll show you how to do that. All right. That's tools. What else do we have? We've got a ton of parts and such to go through. First of all, let's talk about the JLF, which is what we're going to install. Now, if you're an arcade stick enthusiast of any kind, the JLF is kind of the standard Japanese lever. And you hear that satisfying clicking? Well, there you go. But we're not going to be satisfied with just an ordinary JLF in this. Oh no, we're going to mod this a lot. And we're going to show you how to take it apart, put it back together with all of our different parts, and have a good time doing it. So stay tuned for that. Okay, what else? I'm going to be installing the Link on this, for one. And this is a modification for the JLF that lets you put in this little kind of replacement shaft. So you can see it here, has this little difference head, and what that allows you to do is, well, I've got an assembled one here. You just pull this back, pulling it together, and now your joystick is detachable. This is awesome for travel, and this guy, if you want to take it somewhere, the Link makes it just a little bit easier to throw it in a bag, and then you take off your joystick, and there you go, you're set to go. Let's also talk about, we're going to want a compatible dishwasher because that Link is a little bit thicker and it may not fit exactly, so there we go. We also have the BitBangGaming Shuriken. So one of the things with the JLF is that the switches on there they're hard to replace without doing soldering, and I hate soldering, so we're not going to do that. Instead, we'll use this JLF Shuriken to just put the switches we want on there, and the nice thing is you can customize the switches that go in to have greater or lesser resistance. So if you want a quicker stick, you put in like 125 gram of force switches, or if you want a heavier stick, then use 400 or something. If you want the standard, use 200. We have some of those switches right here. I have some extras. You only need 4 for that Shuriken, but it's nice to have some extras so when eventually you wear through one, then you're good to go. All right, what else do we have? We're going to change out that ball top. Now, if you like bat tops, you can get one of those, or if you like ball tops, I really like this. This is the Cadet Silky. It has a nice little fine rubber texture on it. They feel so nice in your hand. Also, I have a Buttercade stainless steel pivot that we're going to be installing. We've got also the Paradise Arcade Delrin gates. So this is an octagonal. We also have a circular and a square gate in here that we can swap out. I'll show you how to do that. And we also have from Paradise Arcade, some different spring tensions. So the spring inside determines how fast things come back, just snap back, how much resistance you're going to feel as well. In addition to those switches I mentioned, so this also contributes to the feel of your stick. So I have 2.5, 3, and 4 pound weights. The feel, I mean, that's of course a subjective thing. If you used to play on heavy American levers, then a stock Sanwa is going to feel like, whoa, there's nothing there. But this can help change that. So we got that. Also for the 8BitDo, that Sanwa JLF connector is not really compatible. So we need one of these, and I got this from Focus Attack. It's a 5-pin female to 5-pin female JST connector. I guess I can make my own, but I'm lazy. So I just spent like $1 on it. All right, we also have a Paradise Arcade oversized actuator because The JLF has a bit of a longer throw distance, and I want to shorten that up because I just like it engaging right away, and you know, we're just having that fun. As well, we have also from Focus Tech a little bit of silicone lubricant. Okay, let's talk about buttons because everybody likes to press buttons. I've got a whole bag full of Seimitsu PS-14s. These are translucent colors, and of course I'm the rainbow guy when it comes to buttons, so we're going to be doing a Super Famicom layout, and I think it'll look cool. We'll see. As well, these are all 30mm buttons, so if you're new to Japanese buttons, they come in generally two flavors. The 30mm, which are usually your action buttons, unless we're getting into hitbox, etc. But for this project, all of our action buttons are 30mm. And for our option buttons, our P1, P2, these are macro buttons for the 8BitDo. I just assigned to L3 and R3. So you can do recording things in various fight games. These are going to be 24mm. They didn't have the translucent ones, but I think these will look good. In addition, I bought an extra couple switches. They are the same across 24 and 30mm. So that way, if I have a button that starts failing or one of these contacts breaks, it's an easy swap. I just take out the button and put this in. We might show that, who knows. Also, I decided that, you know, I'm used to HAP and IL style buttons, American buttons, that take a lot of force to press. And these guys are just springs that go inside the Seimitsu buttons to give them a little bit more resistance, but also a little bit more snapback. So we're going to be trying those out. I have both 0.5 newtons and 0.25 newtons. So we're going to be using the 0.25s on the action buttons. So these little guys. And the heavier tension on the option buttons, just because I always feel like option buttons, you want to make them slightly harder to press, just to, you know, give you that opportunity to think about it, I guess, in the middle of the match. Anyhow, that's our tools and parts. We are ready to get started. Let's talk about the JLF. Before we go about modding it, I think it helps to understand, you know, the different components and what makes it up, what makes it tick. All right, so starting from the top, we have the ball top, and you might have a bat top. Those are also compatible. We have what's called the shaft, but we also have a shaft cover on here, so it's hard to see just because it's kind of a smoked plastic, but it's there. And then we have a dust washer. Now, typically, when you're working with a standard JLF, you'll have two dust washers to worry about. One will be underneath, so the layer underneath the top of the fight stick will have a dust washer, and then over top will have a dust washer. And that just helps protect your stick. On the back here, so first we have the mounting plate here, this guy, and that just, you'll use your screws and connect that to your case of choice. And then we have kind of this assembly here, and within are the switches. So if you look, this guy right here, you can see that it connects directly to this PCB. Those are switches, and they connect to your control board. Right here is where you connect your JLF to your whatever you've got, your board or whatever internals you have, whatever PCB on the other end. On top of this assembly, we have what's called the gate. Now, the standard JLF uses a square gate, so you can see that it has a kind of rounded square, and that's probably the most popular Japanese style gate. There are other gates available. We're going to be installing one. If you look closely, you can see this black piece here, that's called the actuator. That's what makes contacts with the switches that are underneath. Finally, we have a C-clip and this retention screw. So what happens when you move the stick is, you see how this lever moves? Like so. So if I push right, it activates the opposite switch, which triggers a signal to go out through here to your controller board, and it says, hey, send the right signal to move your character right, or whatever you're going to do in that game. You know, same with the other directions. And if you press to it once and go into a corner, it's pressing two switches at once. So right, left. Well, can't do right, left, obviously, but you know. Anyhow, that's underneath here. we can't really see it with the actuator in place, we'll go into it, of course, is a spring that helps return it to central. Otherwise, this right up here would, so you notice when I touch it, it comes back. That's because the spring that's installed. So how do we take this apart? Well, the first thing is, so we can install it, obviously, because if I try to ram this through the top of the Fightstick, it wouldn't fit, and I'd just get frustrated or I'd break things, and we don't want to do that. Well, the first thing is we want to take this guy and this dust washer and the shaft cover off. So what we can do, you'll notice if I just try and screw it, this doesn't work too well. I'll sit here all day and nothing happens. It's because, well, if you see down there, it just rotates. So we're not going to get anywhere unless we insert a flathead screwdriver, and I recommend using a little bit bigger one, like so, and you'll feel it give way. So, like so, and there we go. Once that's loose, you can unscrew it. You don't have to hold it there the entire time, I don't think. Yep, it's coming right off of there. Bonk. Okay. And there we go. Now we can take this shaft cover off, and also this dust washer comes right off. So we're good to go. Save those for later. If you're going to be using the standard JLF, then we don't want to lose that shaft cover, but since we're putting the link on, it's not even compatible. So there's that. Okay, who's next? If we want to completely disassemble this guy, what we want to do is, see this little C-clip? Okay, there is a little C-clip here. It's thin, it's unassuming, but it holds things together. So, you'll notice there's little bitty, tiny bitty notches that you can slip either some pliers or, in this case, our screwdriver. And all we want to do, let me try and get the best angle, is kind of notch that out with our precision flathead here. There we go. And then this frees up the actuator. So this guy here. Now since we're replacing that, I'm not going to, I'll save it, but I'm not going to really use it. And then underneath, well, look at that. There's our spring, which I mentioned, which gives us some tension. So there we are. Underneath that, there's a couple more parts, but also this allows us to remove the main shaft. And also, so now you can see how it's going. All right, from there, we want to start removing things. We can start with the top plate, and for that, we just need the old Phillips screwdriver. So, we do want to keep this top plate though. This is essential for mounting it to the 8BitDo or whatever joystick you're putting it in. Really easy. Make sure you save these screws. I do recommend you have a parts tray or cup like that because these guys are little, they can escape very easily and we don't want that. So I'm going to take this off and come right back. Okay, we're back. That last screw came out. Now, I didn't mention what Phillips bit to use. I apologize. I recommend a PH1 or 2 for this one. I just used a 2. It works well enough, but these are small enough you can get away with a 1. 3, probably too big. Now we can see the underside of this assembly here, and this white piece is called a pivot. We're going to be replacing that as well with a Buttercade stainless steel one, so let's see if we can get that to drop. Oh, no, it doesn't want to. All right, let's ply it out. There she is. All right, let's just dump that. And you'll notice inside, we got that underside to pop out too, so let's put that aside because we will need it again. You'll notice there's might be some grease on the inside. We're going to show you how to lubricate that just to make sure it's clean and going to move around just fine. But there's also this gate. Let's take that off if we can. This is going to be a little tricky sometimes. So you notice there are 4 tabs here, and we just want to slot them in, push them in a little bit, and then pull up while we're doing that. And it's once you can get a couple of them, the rest should come off pretty easily. It's just a matter of, there we go. Gates off, and there we go. Wonderful. So then we have our switch assembly, and that just plies right out. We have taken apart this Sanwa JLF. Let's bring the crew back together just to see what you've done. Look at all that. Now what? Well, let's start with this guy. We're going to set aside these parts here. We don't need the screw. We will need this guy. We will need the C-clip. Do not lose that. We don't need that actuator. We don't need this pivot. It's a little greasy. I'm going to put that aside. Let's open up some pieces. So first of all, let's put this... Oop, I don't want fur on there. Fur bad. So first of all, let's get our actuator ready. And what else do we need? Oh yeah, let's have our gate ready. And our shuriken out. We will become ninjas. So let's assemble the shuriken real fast. This is by BitBangGaming and it's sold on Focus Attack. So if you've ever had the problem where, oh no, my switches keep dying, well, worry no longer. This is what this is going to solve. Okay, so notice on the shuriken, and I shouldn't handle PCBs like this. Generally when you have PCBs like this, you want to handle them by the edges so you don't short out anything with, I know it's probably not as prevalent now as it used to be, but electrostatic discharge is not a fun thing. You'll notice there's these little tab slots, and those correspond to the switches, so just kind of nudge them in there. I think I'm going to have to use the... So there's no soldering involved. I don't like soldering. I don't think in a tutorial series for beginners we should do soldering unless we absolutely have to. All right, then we just repeat this a few more times. I opted for the 200 gram switches, so there's that. And finally, this guy. All right. Let's make sure we want to just make sure we push them forward, nudge them up a little bit. Don't push super hard, but just to make sure they're all aligned. And we have this nice center where, hey, look at that, there's these red switches. We can give them a press and they feel good. Okay, so now we need to line this up on top. We want to make sure this faces the original direction, which I probably messed up, but life goes on. Okay, what else do we need? Let's use that gate. And I want to show you, this is a really cool design. It takes a standard sound one, but it also makes it so you can switch the gates out in the center. And to do that, you just want to push. Oh no, that's bad. Now that we have the shuriken in, let's talk about the next step, which is replacing that gate. Now this is the stock gate. This is a square gate, and for people that used to play on American or European arcades, this is probably not as ideal. But that's okay, what we're going to do today, and this one actually broke during filming, so that's something. Anyway, to change this out, you might think, okay, I just press or twist these little tabs. You're only kind of right. What we need to do is flip it over and press from this side. So what we'll do is, you'll notice there's this tab here, which provides pressure, and the one over here is broken, so it's not there anymore. But we just press down and rotate until we get to, there's a set of open tabs right there and right there, which will allow you to take that center gate out and set it aside. Then, let's say I just want to replace it with this cool new Delrin plate or restrictor gate. I just line it up with the open tabs, press down, and then I kind of use the other side once it's down to snap it into position. Now there's a second position here, so if we push down again and then rotate it again or further, it snaps into a second position, which is more for like almost like Qbert or something like that, four-way control. So usually you don't want to use that in typical fight sticks. You'll just go for that first position here. However, I cheated a little bit. So we had that second gate, which is now broken, sadly, rest in peace, and installed the octagonal gate, which is what I like. So let's talk about, okay, how do we get this on? What you want to do is make sure these tabs are pointed upward. And it doesn't really matter, it shouldn't matter which side you line it up with here, because they should be equidistant. Just line it up. You'll see these 4 tabs here. Whoop, let me come back. These 4 tabs, and you'll notice you have those 4 open slots from when we took it out earlier. Just line them back up, push down, and hopefully they'll cooperate enough to snap back in. And we're good. All right, let's move on to the next step. We have that gate installed, and just a note, since we are using the Shuriken, the gate here has these little bumps on the underside. So let's see if we get the camera to focus. There we go. You'll notice they're right here and right here and right here, and they match up. This is the stock PCB with the little holes on the switches. So you may need to slide these around a little bit just to get them in position and lock them in, as I had to do. Okay, so what do we do next? Well, what we want to do is get this reassembled, of course, but also put in some more stuff. So let's work on this pivot, this little Buttercade stainless steel pivot. What you'll notice is, but we have to be careful, because this little piece here, the spring receiver, we just want to hold that in, because if it falls out, it's a pain to put back in. So just make sure you got a finger there. Now in this little cup, it did come pre-lubricated, but I cleaned it out just so we can show you how to do maintenance. And like I mentioned before, we want some silicone grease. You don't have to use this dab. You can use Shinetsu, you can use other silicone lubricant. It's just that's preferred. Now to get that open, just tap that. Okay, cool. Oops, I got a little on my thumb. All right. Once again, gonna hold that in position. I've seen others use guitar picks or other soft plastic tools. I'm gonna use a Q-tip here, and you only need a tiny little bit, so just that much, if you can see that. And all you do is just kind of rub that around inside. You'll see the circular cup here. This is where your pivot's going to go, and that's where we need that to be lubricated. Okay. Now, this next step, we can throw the pivot in like so. There we go. And on top of that, we want to put our plate. And it doesn't matter if we do it this way or the other, they're the same. So we'll just take those silver screws we had before, line them up, and screw them down. This is a little tricky because you got to keep holding that one piece in there. Not ideal, but it's what we have to work with. We'll just get these started. And I'll see you back here in a bit. You just want to put in these 4 screws to lock it down. Okay, we're back. We have our plate reattached. What's next? Well, we want to put in our link, little nub shaft, I guess you could call it. And it's pretty simple. Just drop it in right through there and through the other side. So there we go. It's going to look a little stubby, but that's fine. That's what we expect. Now, as we flip, we're going to have to flip this over to complete reassembly. So just make sure you hold that in with whatever finger works for you. And you can see, oh, there it is. So we just have a couple more pieces to put in. Here's the Paradise Arcade 3-pound spring. I know other places have that size. I'm going to have to close this grease up before I put my fingers in it and screw up everything. And then I'm going to take that oversized actuator and put that on top. All you do to get this sealed, come on, once it wants to go, is kind of jam it down there. And there is a little bit notch, and this is hard to hold, trust me. So I'm going to let it go. But what we need to do is, while we're holding that actuator down, and we want to slip this C-clip inside that notch to hold it all together. So let's see if we can do it again. The trick is, on the inside, remember we put that one plastic piece, the kind of spring receiver on there? We have to make sure all of it lines up. Because if it doesn't, kind of not going to have a good day. Whoops, and that's what happens when you lose it. Okay, let's retry that, but with proper tools this time. So what we're going to do is just squeeze that E-clip on. We want to be very careful where you apply the force. Make sure it's right in the center, and you shouldn't need to press too hard. There we go. We are set. And with that, our JLF is modified. Let's talk about how to attach a ball top or remove a ball top, or both, from your Phreakmods Link. Now this is the standard link. I know the X groove is out there, and actually I'm going to be talking about that in a later video. And I've attached a ball top to this one that I was actually using this guy on another stick, and I'm just transplanting this one over to the 8BitDo. So how do I get this ball top off? Because I want to switch to this nice red one, or maybe you like a bat top, that's fine too. Well, they do include an Allen key. So you just want to take the long end here, kind of wiggle it into position, and then you should be able to unscrew the ball top one way or another. It's kind of, there we go. You'll feel a satisfying pop, and then this twists right off. Leave that Allen key in, because once we've got that off, we need to put this guy on, and it's just really easy, just boop, 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 boop. All right, make sure it's tight, and then there we go. We are ready to go with our link. All right, so what if we want, or we need to change out the switch? We have a busted switch, it's no good. What do we do? First of all, we're gonna take this button, and I've kind of cheated a little bit and got the tabs loose. Same as when we change the spring, you push the little tabs and extract the plunger here. Then you'll notice we can see the inside, but that's not where we want to attack it. It's from the bottom. So if you look, there's these tiny little tabs on both sides. Just use your precision screwdriver to push one in and push it down a little bit and rotate it until it comes right out. Then we just take our new switch, and you'll notice that it's kind of rectangular, so it only goes in one way. Just line it up, push it in until it locks into place. If it wants to lock into place for me, there we go. You'll get a satisfying snap, and then we're good to go. So let's put those two away, and I'm going to go ahead and spring mod this as well. Line up the switch again. Make sure it's in there, and we're good to go. That's how we modify our Seimitsu buttons. Now, the 24 millimeters, much the same, but let's go ahead and do one just for fun. Let's go and take out, oops, that's the wrong spring. Where's my big boys? There we are. These, like I said in the opening, I like to use a little bit heavier tension for option buttons and such. So on these, same deal. Find those tabs, kind of nudge them open. Don't use a lot of force to, you'll just break tabs, and that's no fun for anyone. There we go. Take the spring right inside, and then find those. Make sure our switch top lines up with this switch down here, and we want to keep that spring in place. Push down, kind of nudge it in. Ah, yeah, good, good. I like that feel. That's it. So we just need to do that for our remaining buttons, and then we'll be ready to put them in when the time comes. See you then. We put the springs in all the Seimitsu buttons, we modified our JLF, but what if we installed this and, oh no, things don't work? Well, it's easy to find out before we ever plug something in that it'll work or it won't with our handy dandy multimeter. So we're going to show you how to test buttons here. Now it doesn't really matter what model multimeter you have, as long as it has this. And that's the continuity test. It looks like a little arrow and comes up to a stop. So what we'll do is just turn it on to there. And I need something to test it with. Now on my multimeter, I need to press this function key a couple times until I get the matching symbol on there. So now we're in continuity test mode. So we're going to take our handy dandy probe. This guy is the common ground, so I'm going to plug it into COM. And if you have clip-on ones, they actually will work better for you, but these little pointed ones work fine. And since this has the continuity symbol right here with the little arrow and a vertical line. We're going to plug this into here. Your multimeter or continuity tester may be different, and there probably will be, but the same kind of principles applies. All right, so when we touch these two together on these context things, oh no, we're not getting any sound. We should get a sound or something on the display. However, this is actually good, because if we're not completing a circuit by pressing the button like so, that's good. If we touch these probes and this button is dangling and not depressed and it's giving us a continuity, that button may be bad, or that switch may be bad. Now, it doesn't matter which side you plug these into. Let's see, I can flip them around and it should still work. All right. As long as if I touch them together though, I'm going to get a signal because we're connecting current through it. So there we go. We know this button works. Okay. Can I do that for the JLF though, or another stick? And the answer is yes, you can. We just need to know, if you look closely here, probably can't see it on this camera, but you'll be able to see it on your own, is this first pin is ground, the others are switches. So all we need to do is touch the ground to the ground, and that to that, but then we'd have to move a joystick in the direction, and that's a little more talent than I have right now. So you absolutely can test the PCB to make sure it works. We just want to make sure it has continuity through the various switches. And obviously it's not going to trigger on any of these switches unless we push the joystick lever that way. But you can do that if you have the clip-ons. I just don't have those probes with me right now. That said, that's how to test your joystick and buttons prior to putting them in the stick. I highly recommend you just take the few minutes it takes to run through your buttons and go through your stick, make sure everything's good to go. Finally got them in, more or less. Anyway, so you can see what this looks like now. We got those, and we are good. So these are going nowhere, even if they don't 100% snap in as I'd like, but them's the brakes. So those feel really good with those springs in them. These feel nice and heavy. I would probably, unless you have really big, strong fingers, I would not recommend using those 0.5 Newton springs on your action buttons. Even these 0.25s feel pretty good. Not too heavy, not too light. But if you like the really light, fast movement, then don't put a spring in at all. And there you go. All right, it's time to talk about this lever. It's a serviceable lever, sure, but we put all that time into making that wonderful modded JLF, so let's install that now. We're going to flip back over, and you'll notice that I told you wanted this 5-pin guy. This uses, they soldered on wires, so it's not great. But anyway, and they have a lot of extra wires. Usually these setups use a 5-pin, but they've practically got 8 or so. So they're using a wire per that, which is why you want this guy, so we can connect at least the first few pins. Now what we might need to do is grind off this little locking tab where we can just kind of force it in, but regardless. First thing we want to do is, you can really do either. We can cut this zip tie, and you probably want to replace it one handy just to kind of keep your wire mess to a minimum. And there it goes. And then we can separate out the buttons and such from the stick wires. Wiggle this side to side, pull it, there we go. I know I pulled it by the wires. I'm bad, sorry. And just like before when I'm showing you how to remove the ball top, we want to go ahead and unscrew the ball top. Now it's loose from the other side, so we can undo it. Let's save these, put them off to the side. Keep them with this lever anyway. I think, well, that pivot, I was ready for that pivot to come out, but I guess not. Just like the Sanwa, we've got a C-clip kind of buried under here, so it's actually pretty tricky as to how far it wants to be under here. You just need to ply that out. And what we can do is so you'll notice it is a C-clip, kind of a horseshoe. If maybe we can nudge it from one side or another. I have those old person eyes, so it's really hard for me to see up close like this, but I will do my best. Let's see if I can, yeah, there we go. This might be the way to get it out. Ooh, ouch. Let's see if I can't force that down with one screwdriver while we apply out the C-clip with another. Or we can try the pliers approach. If I can get any grip with it. Oh, there it goes. And we'll pop that in there. Just like that. Pull the actuator, the spring, and let the lever slide out. And the pivot came out of this guy too. That's fine. Found my screwdriver, so here we're back in business. All right, all we need to do now is there's 4 screws holding this on. So keep these because we're going to need them to mount our JLF. And there's, well, we'll talk about that in a second actually. All right, now let's ply this guy out and out of our way. All right, over and done with. Okay. Now I'll probably get this wrong, but there we go. So I put this down here. Hopefully I've got that right and we're not going to have this backwards. Anyway, what we want to do is with our cable, if you look closely, you'll see this, the joystick has U, D, R, L markings, and then the rest are grounds. So if hopefully this will work. I may need to file this little edge down. All right, so now all we have to do really is connect one end to the other. Now if you look closely on here, you'll see U, D, R, L, and the rest are ground. So we can kind of plug it in that way, and we have to force it a little bit because this is a 5-pin going into an 8-pin header. Oh well, such is life. Now what we want to make sure we do is match up this last wire to the ground pin on our JLF, and that way it should be oriented the way we want. Unless I've done this wrong. So just line them up. I should go in if we're... I don't want to do that. Because then we are opposite of what we want. There we go. It's a little bit fussy, but there we go. Okay. And now we have our JLF connected. Before we put everything back, let's go ahead. We're just going to take a zip strip real fast, run it through here, and tie it off. I know hopefully no one's looking at this in the video and saying, oh my gosh, you did the JLF wrong. I probably did. We will see. In that case, we'll just reverse it. Okay. That makes everything a little bit better. All right, we are ready to reassemble. To do that, we don't really need the... I suppose we should keep the towel on. We just want to turn this on its side. And let's see. You'll notice these two halves. This on this side, it has like a space for the joystick to bottom out on. So this needs to be flipped this way. Now, before we connect them, we need to make sure this cable is reattached. So just look at the orientation, and there should be a guide for this. Yeah. It only should fit in only one way. If you look at the front here, it has like a U-shaped, kind of squared off U that goes right in the front, and that'll push right in. So there we go. Okay, now let's settle this on. Okay, we're good. Everything's in. And you're looking and it's like, oh no, where's my joystick? It's okay, everything's fine. Remember, we just need one of those dust washers and our link. And I'll show you how to put that on in a second, but I want to mold this together first. So we just need to flip this over and take the black screws we took out a while ago, drop them in, and just use our T10 to get them back inserted, as they should be. I've noticed this guy has, like, you'll get all these little shavings that come out. I don't know what they are. But they're there, and, well, you'll just have to clean up a little bit. Okay. Good, good. One. Come on, settle in. All right, once you've got all 6, we're ready to go. And just a shortcut to that part where we connect, we're going to take our assembled link and a dust washer, and make sure these should be the ones that fit Sanwa with a shaft cover. So when you're shopping, just be mindful of that. And unlike when you have a normal Sanwa where you put a dust washer underneath, in Link's case, we do not want to do that. That will cause problems. So what we do is just pull up on this collar. And that looks, let us affix to that, push it down, let it go. You should test by pulling up a little bit, but there we go.